The Paul Leslie Interviews.
Without a doubt, one of the most iconic singing groups ever would be Little Anthony and the Imperials. It's our pleasure to welcome the one and only Little Anthony.
The one and only? Oh, yeah, I guess I am, huh? I guess I'm around. Yeah, cool, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a great pleasure to welcome you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I kind of want to go back a little bit. What was life like growing up?
Man, you know, so many years ago, I'm starting to change the story all the time. And George Burns has always tell things different. As the older you get, the story keeps changing. Growing up, just a normal kid in the hood, in the neighborhood, in Brooklyn. Just normal. Go to school, go to elementary school, go to high school. Just the normal things of life.
And was there a lot of music around the house?
Well, yeah, because in my house, everything was musical because I come out of a history of people in the music business of one form or another. My mom was a gospel singer. They tell me my great-grandfather was a great singer. And my father was a jazz musician and played alto and tenor sax. And my brothers were all played different instruments, and my aunts were all singers. So music was, I guess, a very normal thing at a very young age. I was hearing the stuff that obviously affected me.
Who were your favorite singers?
Oh, I don't know. In those days, quite a few, man. Elvis Presley was always one that I really dug, and then Nat Cole came, and then a group called the Orioles, and then there were the Ravens, Big Joe Turner, I love him. Keep riding, move. And then my father, being a jazz musician, I was taken to many of the people at that time that were just becoming very popular, like Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis and Eleanor Jacket, and just a variety of different things that I was being exposed to.
Who would you say had the biggest influence on your singing?
Interesting, it was Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. That was the first person I heard that I sounded like. In other words, I couldn't compare myself to any of the singers in those days because I had such a high voice. I was a natural tenor. And here comes this kid that sounded like me, or I sounded like him. But I consider him much stronger singer than I was at that age. And that's really turned me on. But on the other hand, I was listening to Nat Cole and was very influenced by him. So it's pretty rounded.
When you met the other members of the Imperials, did you feel you had something together?
First of all, there was no such thing as Imperials when I met them. They were a group called the Chesters, and then was Clarence and Ernest and myself. We're still together. All these years, still together. We all lived in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, the 4th Street Project. So everybody was singing in those days. Everybody went to different groups and singing around corners and street corners and subways. And so I didn't know, nobody looked at it like, wow, man, we're going to be stars. No, I think we were more impressed in the fact that when we sang on street corners or in the park in the summer, the girls would come around. I think that influenced us more than anything. I don't think we realized that we were developing in a style. We weren't trying to. It just happened that way.
Tell us about when you recorded the song Tears on My Pillow.
Mm-hmm. Well, we just went to, Clarence called me and said that there's a possibility that I can get a record deal with them. And I was already with a local group at that time. As a kid, I was about 15 years old. And guys out of my school, our high school, boys high school, we got together and was called the DuPont. So we had some local success around here locally. But Clarence came to me and said, man, it's a possibility if you sing with us, it's possible we can get a national, even an international recording deal through N Records and Goin Records. And I know this guy called Richard Barrett. And I knew who Richard Barrett was. I used to watch him as a kid on stage. He used to be with the Valentines. But he also introduced Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. He introduced the Chantels. He introduced the Isley Brothers. So he had and the Dubs. He had a great resume. And that turned me on. So that's how that started. We went over there and Goin Records and sang one of the songs that Ernest wrote, Just Against People in the World, and the rest is history.
We're talking with Little Anthony of the Imperials. I want to ask you about one of the songs you're associated with Hurt So Bad. I watched you perform that song on Letterman. I thought the performance was great. A great song to begin with.
Yeah, it is. Well, that song was written for us. Teddy Randazzo wrote that song. That was the second song in the many hits that we had with him and Mr. Don Costa. And the first one was Going Out of My Head. I mean, outside looking in and then Going Out of My Head, then Hurt So Bad. People ask me, what was the favorite song that you did at that time? Hurt So Bad was my favorite one. And, in fact, it was a favorite of a lot of people. Well, Sinatra did Going Out of My Head. Nancy Wilson really had another hit on Hurt So Bad and quite a few people. So we were very blessed that way, man. Some of the top echelon type singers were so impressed with it that they started doing their renditions of it, and that really helped us to become who we are today.
We're talking with Little Anthony. You all were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like?
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was one of those highlights of your life. I've had many highlights, and that was one of them, but I think that was the highlight of highlights because of all the different people that were there and stars and major recording stars. It was just a who's who of who. And for that fact, it was very humbling to be inducted, to be nominated and then inducted into the Hall of Fame. Really told me, gee, our body of work is really good. It's not limited. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people in my business that like to limit people, give them a label. Oh, doo-wop, they're a doo-wop group. No, we're not. We don't sing songs like Going On in My Head and Not So Bad and Take Me Back. Somebody need to educate people on that. They just assume that we came out of a certain era, so therefore we're a singing group, we should be that way. But when we got to the Hall of Fame, that vindicated us, because they're not looking at that. They're looking at our body of work, what we've done all those years, what we've accomplished. And that's how we got in, and that gives me a sense of vindication.
One of the things that I enjoyed about seeing you perform was you all do the song Just Two People Acapella.
Yeah, we still do. Yeah, we didn't always do it, but I don't know how. Oh, we decided to do some of the older groups that influenced us, and we did a thing called what the heck we call it? Oh gosh, I forgot. We called it CD, but it was Acapella something. And we decided to do it without any music to go back to our roots. And one of those songs was what started us, what got us the record deal. What's going on in then records was Just Two Kinds of People in the World.
We're talking with Little Anthony of Little Anthony and the Imperials. What was it like having the great Smokey Robinson be the one to induct the band?
I was quite taken and thrilled and honored, because I've known Smokey. We all knew each other since we were kids, hustling and running. But he is prolific. He's one of the great American prolific songwriters. He volunteered. He wanted to introduce us because we had been friends for so many years. So we heard that. We found out from the folks at the Hall of Fame. They asked you who you like, and then I said some names and stuff, and then they came up, well, how would you like Smokey Robinson? He would love to introduce. I said, what? Heck yeah,
Back in the day, Little Anthony and the Imperials sold so many records. In fact, they were in competition with the Beatles. I'm wondering, did you get to meet any of them?
No. We really wasn't in competition. It's just that kind of a music came, what we call an English invasion. But if you really look at that era, which was between 63 and 69, we also were in a very good company. Dionne Warwick was very successful. The Drifters were still very successful. We were successful. And it was this little bitty record company out of Detroit called Motown. They were successful. So I don't like to single us out. We really can't. We just happen to be, the type of music we did was the people still wanted it, even despite the Beatles. Now, in answer to the second part of the question, no. And I've always regretted that, though I heard that George Harrison was a big fan. And I've always been trying to find out to meet Paul McCartney. Never met John. You would think I would have, but I just didn't for some reason. Ringo I met, but later on, much later on. And I met Ringo in the late 90s. It was an exciting time. But even to survive or be there at that time, all that was going and still hold your own, was really a great thing.
Well, you have had a chance to meet a lot of people just because of the nature of the music, the entertainment industry. For example, you got to meet Elvis Presley.
Very good friend of ours. In fact, Clarence Collins of the Imperials, the founder of the Imperials, one of his friends. I mean, they hung out a lot, and we knew all the guys, we knew all the Memphis Mafia. We sang in the same hotel at the same time when he became very famous in Vegas. At first it was called the International, and then the Hilton bought it out.
What was Elvis like?
Just the nicest guy on the planet. You know, he was like a bird in a gilded cage. He was the victim of his own success.
We're joined by Little Anthony of Little Anthony and the Imperials. Tell us about Buddy Holly.
Yeah, met Buddy we were doing promotional tours, so come to find out we get to Cleveland, and we were at the Hopkins, what's the name of the hotel? I can't remember. So many years ago. I was sitting in the lobby, and there comes Buddy coming down to the lobby, and he looked at me and says, "Little Anthony." I said, "Yeah." And started talking with him and struck up a thing. And then when we were in Lubbock once, I think they had come around, I can't remember so long ago, but intimately I didn't know him, but casually I did, yes.
I heard you also met Bob Marley.
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew Bob Marley when he wasn't Bob Marley. You know what I mean? But what I mean to say is he was just a kid in Trenchtown, Jamaica, in Kingston. And I met him through a man by the name of Don Taylor, who brought this kid around to us, and he said, "Oh, this is Bob Marley." Yeah, right, okay. We don't know who he is. And as the years went by, we started hanging in Jamaica, and then actually, I think it was Clarence or somebody was actually, when he did one of those songs, I can't remember, I Shot the Sheriff, one of the Imperials, Clarence was there at the studio. And
wow.
Yeah, isn't it? And then we're not thinking anything, and the next thing he blew up. You know, it's wild.
When you look back at all your years in the music business, do you have a favorite memory?
Sir, Paul, you got a year? Life has so many twists and turns and memories. I couldn't really pick out any. There's no such thing. I couldn't even answer that question because I wouldn't know how to answer it. I'll tell you this, though. Wait, hold up. Maybe I can. It's one of the memories that I always think of. It was when we played the Lincoln Center in New York City, Black Tie for Mayor Lindsay, and it was a benefit. It was produced by Trudy Heller, and Young Warwick, and Burt Bacharach, and us, and Teddy Randazzo, and the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. That was a night to remember, yes.
What is the best thing about being Anthony Gourdine?
Now, that's an interesting question. The best thing. You threw a curveball there, Paul. Again, it's being Anthony Gourdine is not smooth. It wasn't ever smooth, but there are great times, bad times, great times, bad times. You know what I mean? In other words, Anthony Gourdine is no different than your listeners or people that are hearing it, reading it. We're no different. The difference is that we had a gift to be able to do something that most people can't do. So for that matter, then, yeah, being Anthony Gourdine was unique. But Anthony Gourdine had so many unique things in his life, you'd have to read my book.
I wanted to ask you about this album that you all recorded recently, You'll Never Know.
Oh, yeah.
What brought Little Anthony and the Imperials back into the studio?
Well, today, it's a young man's, young lady's world in the recording business. They don't necessarily look back at all the older artists. They're into what's the flavor of the week now. And hip-hop came in, and as it should be. Every generation has its music. It's just that me and Clarence was talking, and a very, very, very fine man, a very wealthy man, was listening to us talk, hanging around one day. And he said, "Man, I'll back you if you do a CD." And so we said, well, we're going to do a CD of do the things we always wanted to do that we never were able to do, and do it in a way that we felt was cool. And that's what we did.
We're joined by Little Anthony. I know that you have a passion for gospel music. Tell us about that.
Well, that's who I am. A lot of people don't know that. Remember I told you my mother was a gospel singer? I was raised in church, but that didn't mean I always lived that way. I mean, I'm really called the prodigal son, but in 1978, I received Christ again and changed my whole life. Now, that makes that music that much more meaningful to me because it's the gospel. It's all about really the good news of the Bible. And so, yeah, when I sing that stuff, because my voice comes from God, let's face it, it's nothing. You don't survive 50-something years in this business by luck. There's no such thing. It is a gift that was given to me, and I received that gift. I didn't always treat it right, but then when I realized where that gift came from, then I started treating it right. Yes, I love all kinds of music. I love opera. I mean, I love classical music, opera, Verdi, Pacino, not Pacino, what am I? A lot of Wagner, Beethoven, jazz. You come to jazz, Miles, jazz this, jazz that, all it. My sense of music is so great. It's incredible. But gospel is part of that, yes.
Not just of the songs recorded by Little Anthony and the Imperials, just in general. Do you have a favorite song?
Yeah. Of all the things, well, you know those songs that they're never commercially popular, but they're critically acclaimed as far as what you've done? I have many of those that never were hit records, but they were great work. But of the hit records, Hurt So Bad.
We're living in an age when social media is king. For example, so many musicians now are on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm following you.
I never thought I would be. I just went on Facebook, which I never would have thought I would be. But I went on it based upon my other part of Little Anthony. I'm with a company. I don't know if that's okay to say, but it's called ACN, which is Technologies and Telemarketing. And I joined that company, and I had so much fun in my life. So with Facebook, really helps me in developing my own. I have my own online store. I have my own commercial online store, and where I can deal with people with all kinds of things and technologies and change their phones, all that. In that respect, I guess I realized that Twitter and Facebook is very important. Though, you know what, Paul? You got to really screen your Twitters, man, because I've had some of the weirdest Twitters. Where did that come from, you know? And I'm very wholesome.
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm talking about? I decided one day, I said, oh, man, let me just check this out. And I saw Rahana. So you understand Twitter. Once they receive you and accept you, then you go on that whole record. Well, then anybody else that Twitters her, they may not even know her. They're going to Twitter you, don't even know you. It's so crazy. You know what you're going to do.
What do you think of today's technology?
I don't know. When I think back, my father would have never thought there'd be cell phones. And they lived pretty happy. You know, so they didn't know there was, actually, we just saw TV when I was about 8 years old. And the kid in Brooklyn that saw TV in the store. Who would have thought that would be something I look at? For that matter, with flat screen, HD. You can't predict those things.
When somebody goes to see you sing, or hear you sing, or they listen to one of the recordings, what do you want the listener to get from the experience of listening?
Well, it's music. You want to do your music, and you hope people accept it, and that it hits something in them that they can relate to. That's what all singers want. Whether we're writing, whether we're singing and writing, or just singing somebody else's words. Everybody wants that to hit the heartstrings of that other human being that not necessarily sings. And so that's the gift. Yeah, every singer is looking for acceptance. Is this what you want to hear? Am I doing it right? Is this what's turning you on? That's what generally what it is.
What do you like about music?
Music.
Could you pick a favorite part of music?
I love violins. I love anything where we can use violins, which is rare today. I love the sound of the orchestra because remember I told you I like classical music. I love the sound of a big orchestra. I love the sound. It just knocks me down.
What is in the future for little Anthony?
Wherever my life goes, wherever my destiny is, it is what it is. I sing. I'm not going to be a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon, so we got that cleared. I sing. So it will be some form of singing and my involvement with my business now, which is taking a lot of my time because, hey, there will come a time I don't sing that much. And so this business means that will mean more to me. Other than that, that's about it. You'd have to go to one of the phony fortune tellers to find out what's going on, and I don't know. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow anyway.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Little Anthony, what is your all-time favorite meal?
Oh, you got me there, baby. Now, the greatest thing I ever had was my Aunt Sarah, who taught me how to cook. Generally, I learned how to cook from my mom and people, but it's my Aunt Sarah that literally taught me how to cook. And she used to make a thing called shrimp patties, which is real skeechy type South Carolina thing and New Orleans type thing. And as a kid, I can remember smelling that, and it would just bring memories back to me. Oh my gosh, I love shrimp patties. And I love when she would make them. And so when I got old enough to learn, and before she passed on, she left that recipe with me. And I began to make them. Now my children make them, and then their children are making them. You know what I mean? That's my favorite food, shrimp patties.
Sounds very good.
It is.
So for anyone who's listening to this, wherever they may be, what would you say to them?
I'm very happy that I'm still able and capable. And my guys and Ernest and Clarence and all those guys, we've been together for 50 years. I was telling Ernest the other day sitting here, he's spending time at my house because he's in town to do the performance, so he stayed at my house. And I just said to him, I said, we knew each other over 50-something years. Gee, most marriages don't last that long. So I guess that's maybe not the best answer in the world, but.
Well, if you look around at musical acts, a lot of them don't even last 5 years or 3 years.
Right. And really what I wanted to say was that because of those listeners you have all around the world and East Coast, West Coast, that's why they've been loyal all these years. That gives us the opportunity to keep on doing what we do best.
Little Anthony, I appreciate this interview very much.
Thank you, Paul.
You have a good one. Until next time.
You too, sir. Goodbye.